Let's start. 2111 number 18. Dear Ms. Green. Green. My name is Donna Williams, a science teacher at Rogan High School. Donna Williams, Rogan. I am planning a special workshop for our science teachers. We are interested in learning how to teach online science classes. I have been impressed with your ideas about using internet platforms for science classes. Since you are an expert in online education, I would like to ask you to deliver a special lecture at the workshop scheduled for next month. I am sure the lecture will help our teachers manage successful online science classes, and I hope we can learn from your insights. I am looking forward to hearing from you. Sincerely, Donna Williams. Donna Williams. 2111 number 19. It was Evelyn's first time to explore the Badlands of Alberta, famous across Canada for its numerous dinosaur fossils. Badlands Evelyn. As a young amateur bone hunter, she was overflowing with anticipation. She had not traveled this far for the bones of common dinosaur species. Her lifelong dream to find rare fossils of dinosaurs was about to come true. She began eagerly searching for them. After many hours of wandering throughout the deserted lands, however, she was unsuccessful. Now, the sun was beginning to set, and her goal was still far beyond her reach. Looking at the slowly darkening ground before her, she sighed to herself, I can't believe I came all this way for nothing. What a waste of time. 2111 number 20. One of the most common mistakes made by organizations when they first consider experimenting with social media is that they focus too much on social media tools and platforms and not enough on their business objectives. The reality of success in the social web for businesses is that creating a social media program begins not with insight into the latest social media tools and channels but with a thorough understanding of the organization's own goals and objectives. A social media program is not merely the fulfillment of a vague need to manage a presence on popular social networks because everyone else is doing it. Being in social media serves no purpose in and of itself. In order to serve any purpose at all, a social media presence must either solve a problem for the organization and its customers or result in an improvement of some sort, preferably a measurable one. In all things, purpose drives success. The world of social media is no different. 2111 number 21. Scientists have no special purchase on moral or ethical decisions. A climate scientist is no more qualified to comment on healthcare reform than a physicist is to judge the causes of bee colony collapse. The very features that create expertise in a specialized domain lead to ignorance in many others. In some cases, lay people, farmers, fishermen, patients, native peoples may have relevant experiences that scientists can learn from. Indeed, in recent years, scientists have begun to recognize this. The Arctic Climate Impact Assessment includes observations gathered from local native groups. So our trust needs to be limited and focused. It needs to be very particular. Blind trust will get us into at least as much trouble as no trust at all. But without some degree of trust in our designated experts, the men and women who have devoted their lives to sorting out tough questions about the natural world we live in, we are paralyzed, in effect not knowing whether to make ready for the morning commute or not. 2111 number 22. Environmental hazards include biological, physical, and chemical ones, along with the human behaviors that promote or allow exposure. Some environmental contaminants are difficult to avoid: the breathing of polluted air, the drinking of chemically contaminated public drinking water, noise in open public spaces. In these circumstances, exposure is largely involuntary. Reduction or elimination of these factors may require societal action, such as public awareness and public health measures. In many countries, the fact that some environmental hazards are difficult to avoid at the individual level is felt to be more morally egregious than those hazards that can be avoided. Having no choice but to drink water contaminated with very high levels of arsenic, or being forced to passively breathe in tobacco smoke in restaurants, outrages people more than the personal choice of whether an individual smokes tobacco. These factors are important when one considers how change, risk reduction, happens. 2111 number 23. Scientists use paradigms rather than believing them. The use of a paradigm in research typically addresses related problems by employing shared concepts, symbolic expressions, experimental and mathematical tools and procedures, and even some of the same theoretical statements. Scientists need only understand how to use these various elements in ways that others would accept. These elements of shared practice thus need not presuppose any comparable unity in scientists' beliefs about what they are doing when they use them. Indeed, one role of a paradigm is to enable scientists to work successfully without having to provide a detailed account of what they are doing or what they believe about it. Thomas Kuhn noted that scientists can agree in their identification of a paradigm without agreeing on, or even attempting to produce, a full interpretation or rationalization of it. Thomas Kuhn. Lack of a standard interpretation or of an agreed reduction to rules will not prevent a paradigm from guiding research. 2111 number 24. Mending and restoring objects often require even more creativity than original production. The pre-industrial blacksmith made things to order for people in his immediate community, customizing the product, modifying or transforming it according to the user, was routine. Customers would bring things back if something went wrong. Repair was thus an extension of fabrication. With industrialization and eventually with mass production, making things became the province of machine tenders with limited knowledge. But repair continued to require a larger grasp of design and materials, an understanding of the whole and a comprehension of the designer's intentions. Manufacturers all work by machinery or by vast subdivision of labor and not, so to speak, by hand, and 1896 Manual of Mending and Repairing explained. 1896 Manual of Mending and Repairing. But all repairing must be done by hand. We can make every detail of a watch or of a gun by machinery, but the machine cannot mend it when broken, much less a clock or a pistol. 2111 number 26. Donato Bramante, born in Fermignano, Italy, began to paint early in his life. Fermignano Donato Bramante. His father encouraged him to study painting. Later, he worked as an assistant of Piero della Francesca in Urbino. Piero della Francesca. Around 1480, he built several churches in a new style in Milan. 1480, Milan. He had a close relationship with Leonardo da Vinci, and they worked together in that city. Leonardo da Vinci. Architecture became his main interest, but he did not give up painting. Bramante moved to Rome in 1499 and participated in Pope Julius II's plan for the renewal of Rome. Bramante 1499 Rome Julius II Rome. He planned the new Basilica of St. Peter in Rome, one of the most ambitious building projects in the history of humankind. Rome. Bramante died on April 11, 1514 and was buried in Rome. Bramante 1514-411 Rome. His buildings influenced other architects for centuries. 2111 number 29. Like whole individuals, cells have a lifespan. During their life cycle, cell size, shape, and metabolic activities can change dramatically. A cell is born as a twin when its mother cell divides, producing two daughter cells. Each daughter cell is smaller than the mother cell, and except for unusual cases, each grows until it becomes as large as the mother cell was. During this time, the cell absorbs water, sugars, amino acids, and other nutrients and assembles them into new, living protoplasm. After the cell has grown to the proper size, its metabolism shifts as it either prepares to divide or matures and differentiates into a specialized cell. Both growth and development require a complex and dynamic set of interactions involving all cell parts. That cell metabolism and structure should be complex would not be surprising, but actually, they are rather simple and logical. Even the most complex cell has only a small number of parts, each responsible for a distinct, well-defined aspect of cell life. 2111 number 30. It has been suggested that organic methods, defined as those in which only natural products can be used as inputs, would be less damaging to the biosphere. Large-scale adoption of organic farming methods, however, would reduce yields and increase production costs for many major crops. Inorganic nitrogen supplies are essential for maintaining moderate to high levels of productivity for many of the non-leguminous crop species, because organic supplies of nitrogenous materials often are either limited or more expensive than inorganic nitrogen fertilizers. In addition, there are constraints to the extensive use of either manure or legumes as green manure crops. In many cases, weed control can be very difficult or require much hand labor if chemicals cannot be used, and fewer people are willing to do this work as societies become wealthier. Some methods used in organic farming, however, such as the sensible use of crop rotations and specific combinations of cropping and livestock enterprises, can make important contributions to the sustainability of rural ecosystems. 2111 number 31. Humor involves not just practical disengagement but cognitive disengagement. As long as something is funny, we are for the moment not concerned with whether it is real or fictional, true or false. This is why we give considerable leeway to people telling funny stories. If they are getting extra laughs by exaggerating the silliness of a situation or even by making up a few details, we are happy to grant them comic license, a kind of poetic license. Indeed, someone listening to a funny story who tries to correct the teller, "No, he didn't spill the spaghetti on the keyboard and the monitor, just on the keyboard," will probably be told by the other listeners to stop interrupting. The creator of humor is putting ideas into people's heads for the pleasure those ideas will bring, not to provide accurate information. 2111 number 32. News, especially in its televised form, is constituted not only by its choice of topics and stories but by its verbal and visual idioms or modes of address. Presentational styles have been subject to a tension between an informational educational purpose and the need to engage us entertainingly. While current affairs programs are often serious in tone, sticking to the rules of balance, more popular programs adopt a friendly, lighter, idiom in which we are invited to consider the impact of particular news items from the perspective of the average person in the street. Indeed, contemporary news construction has come to rely on an increased use of faster editing tempos and flashier presentational styles, including the use of logos, sound bites, rapid visual cuts and the star quality of news readers. Popular formats can be said to enhance understanding by engaging an audience unwilling to endure the longer verbal orientation of older news formats. However, they arguably work to reduce understanding by failing to provide the structural contexts for news events. 2111 number 33. Elinor Ostrom found that there are several factors critical to bringing about stable institutional solutions to the problem of the commons. Elinor Ostrom. She pointed out, for instance, that the actors affected by the rules for the use and care of resources must have the right to participate in decisions to change the rules. For that reason, the people who monitor and control the behavior of users should also be users and/or have been given a mandate by all users. This is a significant insight, as it shows that prospects are poor for a centrally directed solution to the problem of the commons coming from a state power in comparison with a local solution for which users assume personal responsibility. Ostrom also emphasizes the importance of democratic decision processes and that all users must be given access to local forums for solving problems and conflicts among themselves. Ostrom. Political institutions at central, regional, and local levels must allow users to devise their own regulations and independently ensure observance. 2111 number 34. Precision and determinacy are a necessary requirement for all meaningful scientific debate, and progress in the sciences is, to a large extent, the ongoing process of achieving ever greater precision. But historical representation puts a premium on a proliferation of representations, hence not on the refinement of one representation but on the production of an ever more varied set of representations. Historical insight is not a matter of a continuous narrowing down of previous options, not of an approximation of the truth, but, on the contrary, is an explosion of possible points of view. It therefore aims at the unmasking of previous illusions of determinacy and precision by the production of new and alternative representations, rather than at achieving truth by a careful analysis of what was right and wrong in those previous representations. And from this perspective, the development of historical insight may indeed be regarded by the outsider as a process of creating ever more confusion, a continuous questioning of certainty and precision seemingly achieved already, rather than, as in the sciences, an ever greater approximation to the truth. 2111 Number 35. Since their introduction, information systems have substantially changed the way business is conducted. This is particularly true for business in the shape and form of cooperation between firms that involves an integration of value chains across multiple units. The resulting networks do not only cover the business units of a single firm but typically also include multiple units from different firms. As a consequence, firms do not only need to consider their internal organization in order to ensure sustainable business performance, they also need to take into account the entire ecosystem of units surrounding them. In order to allow these different units to cooperate successfully, the existence of a common platform is crucial. 2111 Number 36. According to the market response model, it is increasing prices that drive providers to search for new sources, innovators to substitute, consumers to conserve, and alternatives to emerge. Taxing certain goods or services, and so increasing prices, should result in either decreased use of these resources or creative innovation of new sources or options. The money raised through the tax can be used directly by the government either to supply services or to search for alternatives. Many examples of such green taxes exist. Facing landfill costs, labor expenses, and related costs in the provision of garbage disposal, for example, some cities have required households to dispose of all waste in special trash bags, purchased by consumers themselves, and often costing $1 or more each. 1. The results have been greatly increased recycling and more careful attention by consumers to packaging and waste. By internalizing the costs of trash to consumers, there has been an observed decrease in the flow of garbage from households. 2111 Number 37. In spite of the likeness between the fictional and real world, the fictional world deviates from the real one in one important respect. The existing world faced by the individual is in principle an infinite chaos of events and details before it is organized by a human mind. This chaos only gets processed and modified when perceived by a human mind. Because of the inner qualities with which the individual is endowed through heritage and environment, the mind functions as a filter. Every outside impression that passes through it is filtered and interpreted. However, the world the reader encounters in literature is already processed and filtered by another consciousness. The author has selected the content according to his own worldview and his own conception of relevance, in an attempt to be neutral and objective or convey a subjective view on the world. Whatever the motives, the author's subjective conception of the world stands between the reader and the original, untouched world on which the story is based. 2111 Number 38. Introduction of robots into factories, while employment of human workers is being reduced, creates worry and fear. It is the responsibility of management to prevent or, at least, to ease these fears. For example, robots could be introduced only in new plants rather than replacing humans in existing assembly lines. Workers should be included in the planning for new factories or the introduction of robots into existing plants, so they can participate in the process. It may be that robots are needed to reduce manufacturing costs so that the company remains competitive, but planning for such cost reductions should be done jointly by labor and management. Retraining current employees for new positions within the company will also greatly reduce their fear of being laid off. Since robots are particularly good at highly repetitive simple motions, the replaced human workers should be moved to positions where judgment and decisions beyond the abilities of robots are required. 2111 number 39. Cinema is valuable not for its ability to make visible the hidden outlines of our reality, but for its ability to reveal what reality itself veils the dimension of fantasy. This is why, to a person, the first great theorists of film decried the introduction of sound and other technical innovations, such as color, that pushed film in the direction of realism. Since cinema was an entirely phantasmatic art, these innovations were completely unnecessary. And what's worse, they could do nothing but turn filmmakers and audiences away from the phantasmatic dimension of cinema, potentially transforming film into a mere delivery device for representations of reality. As long as the irrealism of the silent black and white film predominated, one could not take filmic fantasies for representations of reality. But sound and color threatened to create just such an illusion, thereby destroying the very essence of film art. As Rudolf Arnheim puts it, the creative power of the artist can only come into play where reality and the medium of representation do not coincide. Rudolf Arnheim. 2111 number 40. Philip Kitcher and Wesley Salmon have suggested that there are two possible alternatives among philosophical theories of explanation. Philip Kitcher, Wesley Salmon. One is the view that scientific explanation consists in the unification of broad bodies of phenomena under a minimal number of generalizations. According to this view, the, or perhaps, a, goal of science is to construct an economical framework of laws or generalizations that are capable of subsuming all observable phenomena. Scientific explanations organize and systematize our knowledge of the empirical world. The more economical the systematization, the deeper our understanding of what is explained. The causal mechanical the other view is. According to it, a scientific explanation of a phenomenon consists of uncovering the mechanisms that produced the phenomenon of interest. This view sees the explanation of individual events as primary, with the explanation of generalizations flowing from them. That is, the explanation of scientific generalizations comes from the causal mechanisms that produce the regularities. 2111 number 4142. Classifying things together into groups is something we do all the time, and it isn't hard to see why. Imagine trying to shop in a supermarket where the food was arranged in random order on the shelves. Tomato soup next to the white bread in one aisle, chicken soup in the back next to the 60-watt light bulbs, one brand of cream cheese in front and another in aisle 8 near the cookies. 608. The task of finding what you want would be time-consuming and extremely difficult, if not impossible. In the case of a supermarket, someone had to design the system of classification. But there is also a ready-made system of classification embodied in our language. The word dog, for example, groups together a certain class of animals and distinguishes them from other animals. Such a grouping may seem too obvious to be called a classification, but this is only because you have already mastered the word. As a child learning to speak, you had to work hard to learn the system of classification your parents were trying to teach you. Before you got the hang of it, you probably made mistakes, like calling the cat a dog. If you hadn't learned to speak, the whole world would seem like the unorganized supermarket. You would be in the position of an infant, for whom every object is new and unfamiliar. In learning the principles of classification, therefore, we'll be learning about the structure that lies at the core of our language. 2111 number 4345. In the gym, members of the Taekwondo club were busy practicing. Some were trying to kick as high as they could, and some were striking the sparring pad. Anna, the head of the club, was teaching the new members basic moves. Anna. Close by, her friend Jane was assisting Anna. Anna. Jane noticed that Anna was glancing at the entrance door of the gym. Anna. She seemed to be expecting someone. At last, when Anna took a break, Jane came over to her and asked, "Hey, are you waiting for Cora?" Anna. Jane. Cora. Anna answered the question by nodding uneasily. Anna. In fact, Jane knew what her friend was thinking. Jane. Cora was a new member, whom Anna had personally invited to join the club. Cora, Anna. Anna really liked her. Anna. Although her budget was tight, Anna bought Cora a taekwondo uniform. Anna Cora. When she received it, Cora thanked her and promised, "I'll come to practice and work hard every day." Cora. However, unexpectedly, she came to practice only once and then never showed up again. Since Cora had missed several practices, Anna wondered what could have happened. Cora. Anna. Jane, on the other hand, was disappointed and said judgingly, still waiting for her, "Hey? Jane. I can't believe you don't feel disappointed or angry. Why don't you forget about her?" Anna replied, "Well, I know most newcomers don't keep their commitment to the club, but I thought that Cora would be different." Anna, Cora. She said she would come every day and practice. Just as Jane was about to respond to her, the door swung open. Jane. There she was. Cora walked in like a wounded soldier with bandages on her face and arms. Cora. Surprised, Anna and Jane simply looked at her with their eyes wide open. Anna. Jane. Cora explained, "I'm sorry I've been absent." Cora. "I got into a bicycle accident, and I was in the hospital for 2 days. Finally, the doctor gave me the okay to practice." Anna said excitedly, "No problem. We're thrilled to have you back." Anna. Then, Jane gave Anna an apologetic look, and she responded with a friendly pat on Jane's shoulder. Jane. Anna, Jane. The end. Good job.